Hey and welcome to the EYFDM Podcast, brought to you by the EYFDM Podcast team. This podcast is accompanied by a study on listening behavior. Nadine, what's the study about?
Hey Fabian, I'm always listening to podcasts when I'm on my way to university every day. And I'm sure most of you are listening to podcasts too in your everyday life. But have you ever wondered how different podcasts influence your career choices or your personal life?
Well, if you want to find out more about the study, there's a link underneath this podcast in the bio. And now,
have fun with our EYFDM podcast.
Hey, and welcome to our very first EYFDM podcast. My name is Fabian. I'm the lead of the Medical Education SIG, and currently I'm the council member for Germany as part of the EYFDM Council. We will learn more about this in this podcast, and I'm very happy to introduce our very first guest, Stuart Holmes, the president of EYFDM. And he's not only the president, but he's also a GP from Manchester, the EYFDM being the European Young Families Doctors Movement. He's also a clinical tutor. We'll learn a bit about what that's like. He supports refugees, doctors to requalify in the UK, and obviously he's a member of the WONCA organization, Royal College of General Practitioners, which is the NMO. We'll learn about what that means at a later stage as well. Welcome, Stuart.
Thanks, Fabian. Yeah, pleased to be here.
Yeah, it's really good seeing you here. We are currently at the WONCA World in Sydney. This is where we are recording. So I've been lucky enough to catch Stuart away from all the busy activities of a conference. Thank you for your time.
Pleasure.
So, WONCA World brings us straight to the topic of this podcast, EYFDM. Stuart, you as the president, in a few words, what is EYFDM?
So EYFDM stands for the European Young Family Doctors Movement, and we're the movement within WONCA Europe for trainee family doctors and those of us who have recently qualified. And we create opportunities basically for young family doctors across Europe to learn from each other and to develop ourselves. I think that's what we're doing, I guess.
That's really interesting. And is there any relation with WONCA, or what is WONCA?
So WONCA is the World Organization of Family Doctors. It's kind of the collection of all of the national colleges of family medicine, and EYFDM is the young doctors group for European WONCA.
All right, so the national organizations, they belong to WONCA, and then I guess a level below that you'll have the youth organizations, and EYFDM is the European Youth Organization, is that about right?
Yeah,
cool.
Yeah.
So that's the formal definition of it, I guess. But what's EYFDM for you?
So I suppose for me, it's the community for young family doctors in Europe who are interested in how things are done in other countries, and are interested to learn from experiences outside what we're doing in our own places. And EYFDM kind of facilitates that by educational events a couple of times a year. And we also facilitate exchanges for trainees and recently qualified family doctors to go to other countries and see firsthand how our profession is done a bit differently in other countries.
Very interesting. Do you remember how you got involved with the EYFDM?
Yeah. So
do you remember when that was? Probably a couple of years ago?
No. I remember vividly. So I was in my first year as a GP trainee in Manchester, and it was a night shift in psychiatry, and it was quite quiet. And I remember thinking, I was always like internationally minded, and I remember thinking there must be like a European young GPs group, and I searched for it. And there was at EYFDM, and I saw that they were advertising for an exchange in Portugal. So on this quiet night shift, I just filled in an application form, sent it off, and then a couple of months later, I was in Porto at what EYFDM's like one of their annual meetings in Porto, doing an exchange beforehand.
So was that a forum?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. It was 2018, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you speak any Portuguese?
None.
Oh, wow. So
just like bom dia, you know.
Yeah. So you took part in the exchange, and that's possible even if you're not fully fluent in whatever language.
Well, thank God,
yeah.
The kind of lingua franca of EYFDM is English.
Oh, okay.
So that opens a lot of doors.
Yeah.
And in terms of exchanges, if you're being hosted in a country where you don't speak the local language, you and your host will communicate in English. And I was hosted by a GP or family doctor in Portugal who grew up in South Africa. So she would kind of give me the gist of what was happening in between patients.
Oh, very nice. Oh, that's very useful. I guess South Africa, she was also quite fluent in English.
Yeah.
Do you need to be really fluent in English to be part of EYFDM?
Absolutely not. So I suppose you need to speak enough to be able to like just get by. Yeah. And if anything, people who speak English as a foreign language understand other people who speak English as a foreign language very well. If anything, it's the native speakers who are the problem in these kinds of environments.
Yeah, quite right. And I think that's it's a good point you're making there.
I'd say if you're even slightly thinking about doing something like an exchange or coming to an EYFDM event, so a forum or a pre-conference, I would say don't hesitate.
So what you're saying is just apply.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. If you're interested, then it's like that spark's there for a reason.
Did you go to the forum after the exchange in Portugal?
Yeah.
And what was that like?
So it was brilliant. So every time I come to one of these international family medicine conferences, like there's always something that expands my mind. Mm-hmm. That sounds grand. But I suppose with EYFDM forums, it's so like invigorating to see family doctors from other countries who are really passionate about family medicine, presenting workshops about their areas of particular interest. And it's always so interesting to learn how the same things are done differently, often better, And I think often it makes you humble because you think your country's doing things great, and then you learn actually there's a lot to learn from elsewhere.
Yeah, well, I fully agree. I think the EYFDM forums are one of the best ways to probably get started with the EYFDM family, I guess. There's also the pre-conference, which is very similar, I guess. What's a pre-conference?
So, yeah, because we're kind of the young doctors group within WONCA Europe, before each WONCA Europe conference, we have a young doctors pre-conference, just like a day and a half, where there's sessions organised by young doctors for other European young doctors. Yeah, and it's both an opportunity for young family doctors to meet each other and have fun, but also learn about things which are particularly relevant for us. And it's a great start to the week because, things like WONCA Europe are huge conferences. So if you start at the EYFDM pre-conference, then you'll have met a few people that you can hang around with for the rest of the week.
Yeah. Cool. That was my first contact in Bratislava at the WONCA Europe, and I really enjoyed it. Before going to the conference, I didn't really know anyone, and also felt I didn't really know how to approach either the conference or the pre-conference because, first time, and you don't really know what to expect, and I think that helped me a lot in that sense. But now you're not just only an EYFDM enthusiast, but you're also the president. What's it like being the president?
That's a grand word, isn't it? So I guess we have this structure because we're like a network of WONCA Europe. So I guess what it means is that I kind of chair the executive that keeps EYFDM running day to day, and I chair the council of like representatives from each country that make decisions for EYFDM. And I see it as my job to keep the show on the road because all of us who are involved in EYFDM in these kind of positions really believe in what EYFDM is doing. So it's kind of about safeguarding that.
Right. So if you look at it from a potential member's point of view, someone in England or in any other country who's currently listening to this, maybe on a night shift, and there's not much to do right now. So there's a member organization, so for you, the Royal College of General Practice, and they're part of WONCA. And then there's a junior committee in your country, and they send a council member to the EYFDM council, is that right?
Yeah, so I think if you're on a psychiatry night shift, wondering is there like a European group of young family doctors, I probably go straight to our website. It's EYFDM.eu, and there's a newsletter sign up, and I sign up for that because then if there's like exchanges or conferences or other like random opportunities, you'll hear about them a couple of times a month. And you're right that in many countries there's kind of like a local EYFDM branch, but not every country has that, and actually you can still participate.
Regardless of the structure.
Yeah.
You don't need to be a member in any country. You can just come to our events.
Yeah, so anyone's welcome at EYFDM. We have people who come from Australia every year. But yeah, if you want to be more formally involved, like in a position...
Council or executive.
Yeah, or to be elected for something,
right,
then you need to be a member of WONCA Europe. And you are a member of WONCA Europe through being a member of your country's national organisation. Most trainees are, because you normally as a trainee you have to be.
I think in England you do. In Germany it's optional. You have to sign up. I think that's
okay. It's a good incentive.
Yeah. It's I'm all for it. And then there's one other thing in EYFDM we haven't really spoken about, and that's the SIGs. What are SIGs? So SIG stands for Special Interest Group for those who haven't heard
good
of the
clarification.
abbreviation. Yeah.
Yeah, so I suppose because EYFDM is full of people who are like really enthusiastic about family medicine, they often find other people in EYFDM who share like areas of common interest, and then we encourage members to set up what we call a special interest group. They're kind of fairly informal. You just work together to maybe do things like put on a workshop for other EYFDM members at one of our events to educate people on that topic. For example, there's an active migrant health special interest group, and they'll always have a presence at our events running sessions on how to care for migrants, for example. And then there are also special interest groups which are more focused on developing ourselves, whether that's as medical educators or in research, things like that.
Interesting. So especially interesting for people, I think, who already have a special interest and who are looking for like-minded people. But it's also good for just having a look at what other people are up to while they train. It's a bit the idea of this podcast as well. So you have a little glimpse into the lives of other trainees all around Europe.
Yeah, and that's really the beauty of EYFDM. You know, it really is so enriching to see how things are done elsewhere, and it really challenges your preconceptions.
So I guess we haven't really talked about you much, Stuart. So we've come up with this idea for this podcast. It's adapted from a German podcast, all said, alles gesagt, and it's word pairs. And don't think about them too much. They are 50 word pairs, and it's about giving you the first best answer you think of. So I'll give you 2 words and you have to choose one of them. You don't have to explain why, because it will move on quite fast. There are 50 word pairs, and if you really can't decide, you can say next. But you can only say next 5 times, so 10% of the questions. You don't have to. I mean, obviously you can go answer all of them. And so one would be, I don't know, shoes or socks. And then whatever Socks. There you go. I guess you get the game. All right. Are you ready for it?
Take it away.
So, cats or dogs?
Dogs.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Summer or winter?
Summer.
iPhone or Android?
iPhone.
Fiction or non-fiction?
Non-fiction.
Beach vacation or mountain vacation?
Beach.
Facebook or Twitter?
Facebook.
Fictional books or graphic novels?
Fictional books.
Mac or PC?
Mac.
Swimming or hiking?
Swimming.
Chocolate or vanilla?
Chocolate.
Science fiction or fantasy?
Next.
Pen and paper or digital notes?
Digital notes.
Pizza or sushi?
Pizza.
Ebook or printed books?
Printed book.
Car or bikes?
There's what you want to say and what's the truth. So car, I guess.
Car. Comedy or drama?
Comedy.
Instagram or Snapchat?
Instagram.
Coffee shop or restaurant?
Coffee shop.
Classical art or modern art?
Modern art.
Guitar or piano?
Piano.
Camping or hotel stay?
Hotel.
Hotel or staycation?
Hotel.
EYFDM or VDGM?
EYFDM.
Council or executive?
Council. Oh, next. Oh.
Next. Forum or pre-conference?
Forum.
Podcast or YouTube video?
Podcast.
Primary care or family medicine?
Family medicine.
Primary care or general practice?
General practice.
Medical education or medical research?
Medical education.
Research or patient care?
Patient care.
Patient care or medical education?
Patient care.
Clinical tutor or examiner?
Clinical tutor.
Family doctor in Oldham or medical licensing development?
Family doctor in Oldham.
Medicine or European studies?
European studies.
Quality and safety in care homes or LGBTQ support?
LGBTQ support.
NHS or private?
NHS.
EU or Brexit?
EU.
UK or England?
UK.
London or Manchester?
London.
Manchester or Liverpool?
Manchester.
Manchester or Lausanne?
Manchester.
Salford or Trafford?
Trafford.
Manchester or Adelaide?
Manchester.
Manchester or Sydney?
Ooh, next.
And we'll come back to the abbreviations. Royal College of General Practice or EYFDM? So
EYFDM.
RCGP or EYFDM? EYFDM.
Sorry.
RCGP or WONCA?
WONCA.
WONCA Europe or WONCA World?
WONCA Europe.
GMC or RCGP?
RCGP.
St. Andrews Centre or Salford Professional Education?
Next.
Wow, okay. That's it. So I guess that has taught us quite a bit about who you are. Why did you say EYFDM versus VDGM? Why did you choose EYFDM?
So I suppose the background to this is that EYFDM was set up almost 20 years ago in Portugal, and it was originally called the Vasco da Gama movement. The idea being that Vasco da Gama was an explorer, and the young doctors 20 years ago were setting out on a journey to try and establish a young family doctors group within Europe.
So a bit of a metaphor.
Yeah. So I suppose over the past couple of years, we switched. We went in a process to decide, should we change our name, and then to what? And there were two reasons why we changed the name. The first was we wanted something more self-explanatory, so that when you say the name, it's instantly understandable. Whereas if you say that we are the Vasco da Gama movement, that requires like 3 sentences of explanation. And then also, while Vasco da Gama was an explorer, he was also a colonialist, and we wanted to move away from a name with those connotations.
Right. And that's quite recent, isn't it? We only just recently changed the name.
Yeah, I can't remember the exact date. I think it was 2022 we adopted EYFDM.
Yeah. At the very beginning, you said you've always been keen to travel and explore other countries, and I think you spent some time at Lausanne University at the CHUV.
Yeah, I did an Erasmus semester.
All right.
In Lausanne, yeah.
And was that in primary care?
No, it was my final year of medical school, and I was there for 4 months, and we had 4 1-month posts, and they were all hospital, actually. Yeah.
It's hospital?
I don't think primary care was an option, to be fair.
Yeah. When did you decide to go into primary care?
So in the UK, our intern year lasts for 2 years, and most people where I was training had 4 months of general practice as part of that. And it was the first job I did during my intern period where I kind of felt like I belonged, and also what people try and do in primary care resonated with me, the holistic approach and being realistic. So it was both a sense of belonging and resonating with what family medicine is.
But then now you are not just a family doctor, right? So you got 2 jobs, really.
Yeah.
How do you live through your day?
Yeah.
Or your week?
So I suppose the truth is, family medicine, I really believe in it and I love it. A strong word, but I'd say that. However, it's also hard. I think it's hard in every country. So I don't actually know if it's harder in the UK than other places, but a lot of us in the UK always have our eyes open for something else to do part of the week. So I work a couple of days a week in an educational role alongside being a family doctor.
And what kind of role is that?
So I work in an NHS organisation, so an organisation publicly funded that helps doctors who are refugees in the UK to requalify.
Oh, to become doctors.
Well, they are already doctors,
right,
but to get licensed in the UK. Because there's quite a few hoops to jump through.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. So how do you have your normal week set up? Do you have a couple of days in primary care and then a couple of days in teaching?
Yeah, it's 2 and 2.
Yeah? 2 and 2. Oh, okay. All right. Oh, so that means you also have a day off?
Yeah.
It's really interesting. One of the key concepts that I did want to talk to you about was, what's your secret to well-being in primary care?
So it's quite standard for GPs in the UK to have 1 day off because their clinical day is quite long and you're drained at the end of it. So full-time is kind of considered 4 days. Mm-hmm. And actually at the moment, I don't have a day off because I'm covering some maternity leave. But on paper, I have 4 days. I only work 4 days. And that
I guess it gives you time as well
helps,
for other things. I mean, for EYFDM.
For EYFDM.
I mean, being a president, I guess.
Yeah.
How much workload is it getting involved with EYFDM in such an important role? I mean, you have a good team, of course, but I mean, how much time do you need to spend on it? I mean, I guess
it's hard to put your finger on because it definitely fluctuates across the year. For anyone involved in the EYFDM, our big bang moments are WONCA Europe and when we have a forum. So in the run up to those, there's lots of online meetings of planning workshops, and it's kind of energizing, but also it does take up time.
I guess that's why you need the extra day as well.
Yeah, if you being actually involved in the executive, which is the group that kind of runs it in the background, there's quite a lot of WhatsApp groups.
All right.
Emails.
And then the special interest groups often, I mean, you're also involved in lots of special interest groups.
I'm not actually, I'm a consumer rather than a...
You're involved in this podcast, so thank you very much. One last thing that you also said. You said RCGP versus GMC, and you chose primary care or the Royal College.
Yeah, well, the GMC is the regulator, so they're kind of the police.
So what is the GMC?
So for non-UK audience, the GMC is the General Medical Council. So they're the people who regulate us, kind of the police for doctors. Mm-hmm. So I definitely would choose the College of Family Medicine over them. Yeah.
All right. So the GMC is the one who's responsible for the licensing of the refugee doctors?
Yes.
Is that right? Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah, they've got many functions, like licensing as well as discipline.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very interesting. So unfortunately, we don't have all day, and I don't want to keep you from the conference. So let's quickly summarize what we talked about. If you had one advice for potential EYFDM enthusiasts, how would you go about getting involved, taking you back to that night shift?
Yeah, so I would say that if what EYFDM does interests you, then don't hesitate, just get involved somehow. I suppose what's the first way in? I think doing something like an exchange before an EYFDM event is a really good way of both having an exchange experience and then meeting people and attending an event. If you don't have all the time, then just coming to a forum or pre-conference is also great. And if you don't know anyone, you mentioned before, Fabian, that there's like local branches sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So you can find them. Every country's different, but it would be probably Instagram or Facebook, you'll find them. And then even if you come not knowing anyone, that does require a bit more bravery. But when you get here, there'll be a WhatsApp group set up to like share where like the social events are happening. So I would say like I am proud of how inclusive we are as EYFDM. You have my word that if you come, you will not be excluded from things.
So next time you come to a forum, just look out for Stuart and tell him that he promised to be very inclusive, and he'll make sure you're included.
I'll get you out of that WhatsApp group.
All right. Thank you very much, Stuart. I hope you listeners have enjoyed this podcast, and we are planning on rolling out several different podcasts in the coming months, focusing on different people within EYFDM, within the network, and we are hopeful to share more and more interesting stories and ways into EYFDM or with EYFDM throughout their GP training. I'll hope to see you or hear you again, and until then, thank you very much.